The Ape Escape games were pretty awesome, weren't they? While they were never Sony's biggest sellers, running around catching monkeys and having a grand old time was fantastic. The debut Ape Escape, released in 1999, was the first PS1 game that actively required the DualShock controller to play, and was designed to take advantage of it constantly, a trait that continued to its two sequels. With every gadget having its own modus operandi on the right analog stick, it's clear to see that a controller with two sticks is just such a core element to Ape Escape. So when the PSP came out, why did they see it fit to port the first Ape Escape to a handheld that doesn't meet those criteria? Ape Escape on the Loose, or Ape Escape P as it's known in Europe, is a remake of the first game released as a launch title for Sony's fledgling handheld. As with the original, the game begins with a trick-performing funfair monkey named Spectre and his fellow chimps getting a hold of helmets that grant them heightened intelligence and escaping the park. Meanwhile, an unnamed professor invites Spike and Buzz to his lab in order to check out his in-development time machine. Unfortunately, the monkeys manage to break in and get hold of it, disperse themselves across time and space, and wreak havoc trying to position themselves in history as Earth's dominant species over humans. As Spike, your goal is to explore various different places throughout history, capture all the monkeys in a time net, and warp them back to the present with the help of a few cool gadgets along the way. There's a few complications here and there, such as Buzz being captured, brainwashed, and turned against you by Spectre, but in general, the plot is easy enough to follow. It may be simple, but it sums up who's who, what's what, and why's why succinctly enough that very few parts of the game feel out of place, and the whole experience is nice and cohesive. And this doesn't change between the PSP and PS1 versions, even if the dubbing is redone for some strange reason.
Spike and Buzz.
Spike!
It's Spike, and Jake's with him.
Spike!
Aside from that, On the Loose seems to be a very straight port for the most part. The level geometry appears to be exactly the same as the PS1 version, the number of levels is the same monkeys appear in the same places, and the same cutscenes appear at the same time they're meant to. While the minigames have been edited and the number of them reduced, who honestly cares? You seriously miss this wannabe parappa skiing? Do you even care that they replaced it with a bland snowboarding game? Didn't think so. However, despite the removal of some minigames, there's not much to take their place, unfortunately. If you played Ape Escape 1 before, then honestly this remake doesn't have a lot new to offer you aside from an enemy almanac and some ramblings from Cassie, which you only get once you beat the game anyway. One of the few changes that have been made is the character models and the background textures, where the PSP remake gets a lot of use out of the new hardware. The cleaner, higher resolution graphics make environments less pixely and foggy than PS1 versions, and the draw distance doesn't seem quite so oppressive. Plus, widescreen's always a plus. Character models are less chunky and polygonal, but they don't look quite as good as Ape Escape 2 on the PS2. I think they may have been trying to preserve the source art style, but I just feel that Spike in particular has lost a lot of the personality he had before. I don't know if it's his movement or what, but something about him just feels a bit flat. Thankfully, the monkeys themselves look totally on point and match the design spec to a T, and since they're the real stars here, that's all fine by me. Unfortunately, my primary gripe with On the Loose comes from something I mentioned at the very beginning of this video. The issue is simply that the PSP's controls are unable to facilitate this game properly. The port is conceptually flawed from the start. In the original PS1 version, the right analog stick was used extensively to give fluid and accurate control to the stun club and net, and to make the gadgets themselves more intuitive, immersive, and fun to use. The lack of secondary shoulder buttons and clickable analogs is forgivable, but this, not so much. When one has to either mash a button or sacrifice movement using the left analog stick to work the gadgets, the results end up either imprecise and clunky or just plain boring to use. Aiming isn't too bad, at least, with a DualShock 3 and PSP Go combo the way I played the game for this video, but let me tell you, it's almost impossible to aim with the PSP's tiny little nub, and it will result in a lot of missed swings. Additionally, the camera has been tweaked in the port and now snaps behind Spike and locks on whenever he jumps, and is also a lot more rigid most of the time. This would be great if it wasn't quite so jerky and didn't completely contrast with the looser camera control that the game was designed around. The transition's jarring when you jump, and for the life of me I can't understand why they did this, because there were multiple occasions in Cryptic Relics particularly where the camera simply would get stuck in a wall or something and wouldn't show me what I needed to see to not die. Not to mention, although you can now position the camera with the D-pad, it snaps back within seconds, making this feature all but useless. Lovely. What's the overall verdict then? Hardly anything has changed in transit from the PS1 to the PSP. This is definitely Ape Escape, and while that means the base game is good, it also means you have pretty much no reason to play it if you played the original. The majority of the changes that have been made are for the worse and rub me the wrong way, and no, I don't mean the character models, those are fine. To put it bluntly, putting Ape Escape on a system with only one analog stick essentially neuters the whole game experience. It's a shame because you can still see there's an above standard platformer trapped in here somewhere, but it would be so much better with that second analog stick. And honestly, it really is if you're willing to sacrifice a few polygons here and there. The PS1 version is a classic game that's fairly cheap and easy to find on PSN, or you can even grab a physical copy without breaking the bank. But Ape Escape on the loose is an inferior port of that title, and you should definitely keep away from it.